What's up, everyone? Welcome to another week of What You're Missing. I'm Sisyphus, as you may or may not be aware. I'm on Twitter. That's a pseudonym. That's not my real name because that would be really weird. But anyway, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about last week's news in the gaming industry, at least the things that jumped out at me. Those of you that watch this normally know what the deal is, know who I am. Those of you that don't, welcome. I would just want to say that I'm glad that you're here. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out. So I'm going to jump right into it. One thing I want to point out is that almost every week I've got something to say about women in gaming or women in our society as a whole. Nothing in the news, or at least the gaming news, jumped out at me this week that had to do with women's issues. So if you're here for that, I apologize, but it was a quiet week on that front, at least in the news. So that's where we're at. But it was not a quiet week for intolerance, ignorance, and overall general hatred, because Activision apparently is creating a Duck Dynasty video game. So I guess Phil Robertson, I think his name was, I guess his rant on how homosexuality was illogical and akin to bestiality and all of the other bullshit that he and his supporters spout. And I think the people that end up watching and enjoying his shows probably, if not overtly, share those views, then probably subconsciously. Well, I guess that's a broad sweeping generalization, but these guys, the guys in the show, are definitely a closed-minded bunch, and it's a little disappointing to see a large company like Activision putting their, I think creating a game based on the show is basically showing support for the show and the people in it. And even if it is scripted and fake, and even if this guy's views are his own and not those of the actual show itself, it doesn't sit right with me, and I don't think we should be going down that path. So Activision, get your shit together. That's all I gotta say. Next up, as far as people getting their shit together, Blizzard. I'm just making segues up as I go, so try to stay with me on this one. Blizzard has been, and Blizzard, if for those of you who are unaware, is the company behind World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo. At least, you know, the most popular three. They apparently for the last 7 years have been working on an MMO that was, and I quote, well, I guess that's not a quote. They weren't trying to replace World of Warcraft with it, but it was called Titan. And last week it came out that they actually had just canceled their Titan project. And it was, there are a few articles all over the web if you want to go and find out what exactly Titan was. I think it was more of a modern day shooter type, but I could be mistaken. But it's interesting to think that they spent 7 years developing a game, especially a massively multiplayer online game. 7 years, and they scrapped it. I saw some title that said analysts are saying that it's a problem for Blizzard's future. This is not very astute observation. It's pretty blatantly obvious that if this is the only game that they've got in their pipeline and they've been working on it for 7 years, while World of Warcraft, the engine of Warcraft, pumped out and gave them money and, you know, changed the industry, as it were, and they lost all that 7 years worth of work, and they don't have anything in the pipe right now, it means it's going to be another 7 to 10 years before another game comes out, which I don't think World of Warcraft can maintain its chokehold on massively multiplayer online games for that long. So hopefully they are either A, working on another game already and we just don't know about it, B, they're taking a lot of what they learned and a lot of the work that they did in this Titan game that they're canceling, and they're able to use it in some of their other projects. So here's hoping that they're doing well, not because I think that Blizzard and or World of Warcraft should continue to dominate the market, but you know, it's always good to see they're a very strong developer and the games that they make are polished and extremely successful. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do from here and how they continue to succeed. So keep your eye on them. For those of you who use Steam, you may have noticed that recently things went from black to blue, and the changes actually are more broad sweeping than that. I went in and I was poking around. I forget what I was looking for yesterday, but they have this sort of game recommendation engine where they provide 10 suggestions based on the games that you gonna sneeze here. Oh, okay, maybe I'm not. Based on the games that you play and the games that you have in your list, and um, it was actually really interesting. So there was some Minecraft-esque feudal time-based game that was being recommended. It was in its early alpha stages, so I'm not real interested in that. And I don't play Minecraft, but um, it actually exposed me to a number of games that I didn't know existed and that are in genres that I normally play. So it's really cool. So good on Steam, and I think it'll do well for publishers and developers and gaming as a whole. So that's kind of exciting. So check it out. Go back to Steam, look around if you've left them for a while, and see what's going on. Next up, there's a gentleman who's working on a game called Wander. Now, Wander is a massively multiplayer online game that allows you to play as a tree. And the sole, I think, purpose of this game is to wander and explore the world. The name is Wander, right? So he talks in this article, he talks about how he was hiking in the Himalayas and he passed somebody who told him about a frozen waterfall that was really spectacular and that he needed to see. And the gentleman or the person that he passed, I guess it's not good to assume that it was a gentleman, but the person that he passed gave him directions on how to get there. You know, like go down, hang a right at that rock, and then travel for about 15 minutes, and you should get there. And he really liked that, and that after he saw that waterfall, he passed another person out, wandering around and hiking, and gave them the same recommendation and gave them directions on how to get there. And it was that interaction that he really thought was interesting. And so he's trying to build this game around that, in that as a tree you are not just wandering and exploring the forest, but you are a part of the forest. And there's no map, there's no dot somewhere that shows you are here, excuse me, to give you some location. And so it's going to purely rely on you just exploring and bumping into people and them giving you directions as he did. And so he said a couple things. He said he wants to, and I quote, show that not everyone on the internet is terrible. And this is, I think, an interesting game and a way to go about doing that. And secondly, he also said you never go to beautiful areas and think this would be so much better if it was exploding. He was talking a little bit about how the industry is saturated with games where you're blowing stuff up and you're shooting people, and that it's just this violent world, but that what he's creating and trying to get people into is very different, and it's on the other end of the spectrum for that. So it's really cool, I think, and it will be interesting to see what he does with it and whether it meets with success. I don't know that I would pay a subscription fee to wander a world like that, but if they went with, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of ways they could do it, but it's worth thinking about, and it's interesting to think about. So it's a good game. Again, it's called Wander. Check it out. Look up the article on it, and I think it's slated for release for PC and PS4 in early 2015. So that should be interesting. And last up, I'm probably going to talk a little bit about this in tomorrow's video, but all I've been doing is playing Destiny, and I guess I should have said spoiler, but you probably know this because you've seen me online. There was a loot cave that everybody was using to farm loot, as you might imagine. On the planet Earth in the Cosmodrome, there was a cave where people were coming, like monsters were coming out. I think it was the Fallen, and some of the Hive were coming out every 6 seconds, and so people would just sit and shoot them constantly, and then go pick up whatever they drop. So it's important to note that all of the loot caves that people are finding in Destiny are not places where the drop rate is higher. It's just a place where they can kill wave after wave after wave of countless enemies, so that by sheer numbers they get loot that they're looking for. And the article that I grabbed that sort of caught my attention had had a title that said, and it was by Ben Kuchera on Polygon, and it said that it highlights Destiny's broken loot system. The fact that there are these loot caves and that people keep finding them and looking for a way to do this. And he's very right that the loot system is terribly broken, that you get these engrams that are random loot of a certain type, but they're of different qualities. So you get a blue engram, but the way the game works now is you probably have a 60 to 75% chance that a blue engram turns into something green, which is a step below it in quality. And so you get all excited that you're going to get a blue item, but you don't. You get green. And so this is just the foundation, or one aspect of how Destiny's loot system is terribly broken. But Bungie is at least listening next week, or I think tomorrow. I think their update comes out on Tuesday. So tomorrow they're coming out with updates to that system, so that at very least if you get a blue engram, it will turn into, at very least, a blue item. It may have a small chance to turn into a purple item, but at least you won't be getting something less than what you got initially. So that's a step in the right direction. We'll see if they, are able to change things further. Yeah, so it's keep your eyes peeled. Watch what Destiny's doing in Bungie and how they update the game, because there are a lot of things that are broken about it. The loot system being one of the most aggravating, and hopefully they'll pretty quickly make the changes that are necessary and update the game into something that it lives up to the potential that they talked about and all of the hype that was out there. So anyway, so that's all I got this week, or for last week anyway. And tune in tomorrow for, I guess, I'll talk a little bit about Destiny, and because that's all I've been playing. And then I think I'll talk a little bit about some of the games that I'm looking forward to, why, what my thoughts are, and everything from there. So tune in tomorrow. Go subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends about this. If you want to get involved, reach out, Twitter, email. I mean, there's all kinds of ways. So I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow.